Well, very good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our fifth landlord information evening. Just wanted to take this opportunity by thanking each and every one of our landlords for the support that you've given us over the last 2 months. And I'm sure I'm not the only one the same, but over the last couple of weeks, there has felt like a bit of normality has sort of sunken in a little bit with the ability to be able to re-attend our favourite cafes and restaurants and get a little bit more of that normal life back. But like I said, just wanted to say thank you all so much for your understanding and your patience with us during the last couple of months. Tonight, as always, our live Q&A is open, so please feel free to send any questions through tonight, and we'll be able to share and answer those questions as we go through. Tonight, a little bit different to what we've sort of been talking about. There hasn't been, I guess, a lot of legislation changes over the last month, but we thought we'd come to you and sort of share some lessons that we've learnt. Both Michael and I and our team have learnt during COVID-19. What have been some challenges and also some struggles that we've faced during the last 2 months, and also the current play of the rental market. There's been a lot that's sort of been written about, and also I'm sure some of our landlords are engaging conversations with your property managers about sort of the play of the rental market and the vacancy rates at the moment. So we'll just cover off on those as well. But as always, Michael, thank you for joining me. How are you going?
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, going well. It's I've actually been looking forward to this, being able to kind of take stock of where things have been at over the last 8-9 weeks now that we've been going through this, and kind of have an opportunity to kind of reflect on lessons learned and what we've, I suppose, how we've come out of this better than what we went in. Certainly, I suppose the things that we will kind of take with us going forward and be able to kind of reflect through the business as well, which I've been looking forward to.
I think it goes without saying that if you don't we haven't come out of this learning at least one thing, then what we're sort of doing through it. I know there's a lot of things that I've definitely learned, and I'm sure that you have as well. Would you like to kick off, or would you like me to sort of start off by saying a couple of things?
You start off by yourself, and then we'll kind of go through.
Yeah, I think one most important one for me was relationships, and not just a lot of new relationships were formed during this period, but also a lot of existing relationships, and drawing on those people that have gone through, probably obviously haven't gone through a situation like this, but being able to sort of bounce ideas off those existing relationships, and also creating a lot of new ones too. So I've been very fortunate to have a couple of few referrals come through this period from landlords and also past clients that have sold with us or bought through our agency, and that have sort of put us in touch with them and created some great new relationships. So one for me, relationships was definitely key.
Yeah. For me, one big one, particularly on the rental side as well, was actually taking time and to, I suppose, have a measured response to things. We learnt quite early on in the piece that I suppose in any situation like this where people are going through a significant amount of stress, I suppose there's a tendency to go towards the hypotheticals and start stressing about certain situations that might not actually eventuate. And that certainly, I suppose, came to fruition over those first few weeks where things were happening so quickly. And I'll go back to some of our very first videos that we did, and it's pretty amazing when you look at, I suppose, the journey that we've been on over the last 2.5 months. But there was situations there where we were getting phone calls from tenants saying, "Look, we've just been made redundant. I'm not going to be able to pay my rent in 2 weeks' time. I don't know what's going on. The business that I'm working in shut down, or they told me to work from home, and I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to pay my rent." Same with landlords as well, being out of work, not being able to pass rent reductions on to tenants, all sorts of things that have been happening. But I suppose, like I said, having the time again, it was actually quite useful from our perspective, putting in that very first checklist that we put in place, and the application for hardship, which I suppose was followed by the government as well. They ended up coming through with the hardship application form and everything too. And I look back to some of the first conversations, and if we had have been very quick to pass on rent reductions, which I'd heard of other agencies doing, there was situations where in that kind of second last week of March, I'd heard agencies passing on a month's rent free or 2 months rent free or 50% for the next 6 months, without hearing what the government had to say. Whereas we took the time to, again, have those measured responses to people, get the information that we needed to, and then respond accordingly. And we're still responding in that way now. So we had one today come through from a commercial tenant asking for a 50% rent reduction. So, you know, it seems quite trivial now when you get a response like that, because we've got the process in place and you go, okay, well, that's fine. Here's the form, fill it out, provide the information that you need to, and we'll kind of go from there. But I know in the early days, it was, you know, it catches you by surprise because it all happened very quickly. And, you know, there was all those big lines out the front of Centrelink and all that sort of stuff. So it happened over the course of, you know, less than a week. So to be able to respond in the way we did was great, and it's great that we've now got the tools to be able to, you know, respond in that same way should a similar situation ever happen again.
Yeah, I think that especially seeing those pictures coming out early days of those big lines at the front of Centrelink and not knowing, I mean, obviously it's extremely, there's a lot of people that are out without work and all those sorts of things, but I mean, just remembering sort of sitting back at that point and going, shit, this could be really, really full on. Like, this could be, we didn't know what could happen. And I guess there has been a lot of people that have gone through a lot of struggles and a lot of hardship through this. But being able, as you said, taking a moment, taking a step back and really, you know, looking at every case and reviewing every case. And so I know at the start there was a few people that were just trying to take advantage of the situation too. So making sure that we weren't just passing on any sort of rent reduction, of really working through that. So that was very important. Another thing for me was just going back to basics, and this is a bit of an old school one, of just getting back on the phones. You know, not being able to, you know, not having the time to be able to sit there and sort of respond to emails and stuff like that, and just sort of getting on the phones and making calls and getting things addressed that way for me was, which I'm probably more so always been a bit like that, being much more of a phone person than emails, but even so more so in this point. I think a few people sort of appreciated the fact that you can just pick up the phone and give them a call and have a quick chat and be like, you know, this is what the situation is, or if we weren't across it or weren't aware of it, give me 5-10 minutes and I'll make a couple of calls and come back to you, and you can sort of address it pretty quickly. So for me, that was another big one, and reconfirm that. Yeah.
No. One of the ones for me has been, I suppose, working remotely. And I suppose it's for a couple of reasons. I don't think we will return, and I literally just had a conversation with one of our staff members about this 15 minutes ago, but I don't think we will return to a normal office environment where I suppose people will be expected to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I don't know that we'll be the only industry like that. We've gotten used to working from home. We've gotten used to having information at our fingertips, even more so than what we did. Like, we're obviously set up for it, but we've become accustomed to the fact that, you know, we can access our emails wherever we are. We can access a group chat through Teams whenever we need to. We're having video conference calls every morning and evening at the moment with the whole team. It's just become the normal way of working for us, and it's been fantastic because it's meant that, despite, you know, being separated by distance, we've actually been probably more connected than what we've ever been. And it's given us the opportunity to kind of respond to things as quickly as what we have, which has been great. But not only from a work sense, but also on a personal sense too. And I'm going to point out the two paintings behind me on the wall there. They're from my daughter. And being able to spend, I suppose, so much time with them over the last little bit, especially when there has been so much nervousness and unease out there in the world, to be able to spend so much time with them at home, even though I've been kind of locked in the front bedroom working away, you know, 15, 16 hours a day, to be able to kind of just walk out of the front bedroom and go and have dinner with them at 5 o'clock every night is something that I've never experienced before. So being able to do that as a family for me is something that I'll probably I'll treasure forever. It's been absolutely fantastic. And it might also mean that, like I said, we won't return to back to the way we were working before. It might mean that, you know, people in the office, myself included, might spend a day a week working from home, because I think we've discovered how effective it can actually be. And to be honest, I think we're probably getting more achieved when we're at home, because we're locking ourselves away and we don't have the those other distractions, and we're able to get a lot more done in the day.
Yeah, actually, it's been a couple of times being able to get home or working from home, sort of stepping out of the study and sitting down to eat dinner at 6 o'clock. A little bit unnormal. We've been a bit unusual. Normally leaving the office or getting to your last appointment at sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So to sort of be able to do that, it's been good, but how quick those nights that you sort of eat dinner and get back in front of the computer and it doesn't, you look back up and it's midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, geez, where did the time sort of go? So it can definitely get away from you. So I think that's important. And I think it's also everyone's, I think, in a well-due holiday, not just us, but everyone, I think needs to take a bit of a break after this and go away. We can't go to Europe, so maybe I heard Queensland are reopening their borders at the end of the month. So wait for everyone to fly up there for a bit of warm weather.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And last one from me would have to be what we're doing tonight. So just these information nights and sessions that we're able to do and come to people in a different sort of forum that we never would have. I don't think you or I have ever sort of spoken about doing online information nights. I know we spoke about it a lot of times, being able, maybe doing it in the office and having landlord information nights in house. But this I wouldn't have imagined this sort of 6 months ago. So this for me has been a huge game changer. To be able to come and broadcast to all our landlords, where they watch it live or the recording afterwards, and being able to sort of share a message with a lot of them and keep everyone informed. I think this will be something that will definitely sort of keep running. And I know we've sort of spoke today, Michael, on a couple of different sort of things we want to come to over the next couple of fortnights in different ways. There'll be sort of, we'll talk about, the rental changes to the Act that'll come in later on in the year. But even just in other sort of ways as well that we can, add value that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, as I suppose as an organisation, what we've been doing is looking at ways of I suppose enhancing this experience as well. So going hand in hand with our owners corporation work that we're doing at the moment as well, we've actually just invested in some new technology for our boardroom. So we'll be able to hold video conferences from there as well. So the hope is that once everybody's kind of back in the office and we're able to get a few more people involved, we might even be able to come to you as a group, which will be quite interesting. So so I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully it'll give us a little bit of time to test out the technology first, and hopefully we can kind of have that happening. But the idea is that I suppose we could potentially do like a property management session where all of the property managers and myself would be there talking to you about property management, and Anthony could do the same with the sales team. And essentially you'd be sitting at the end of the boardroom table with us, and you join in that discussions.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So like I said, we're investigating ways of doing that. But I think you're 100% right, Anthony. This has become our new normal, being able to broadcast these things once a fortnight. They might change in regularity. We might move them to monthly. You might get sick of hearing from us every fortnight, but we want to make sure that we're able to communicate with you in this way, and we've found that it's worked quite effectively. We're getting some pretty positive feedback as well. So we're happy to continue with it as well.
Talking feedback, make sure you send your questions through on the Q&A. So if you've got anything that you think of during these sessions, please send them through. Always love getting questions coming through. The next thing is struggles. I mean, I think at different points of this of COVID, there's been different challenges and struggles, and it's sort of been coming in sort of waves. There might be a couple of days or a couple of hours where you can sort of go, we put our heads above water and go, I think we're over the worst of it, and then sort of another wave will come and push us almost back under again and sort of go swim back up. But it's and I think tonight we just wanted to sort of touch on the rental market and also the sales market. But Michael, do you want to start with maybe the rental market and what we're sort of seeing in around vacancy numbers, around rental prices, sort of where they've come from, where they are at the moment, and some sort of factors as to what's contributing towards those?
Yeah. So we've obviously spoken about rents being adjusted quite a bit over the last couple of months, but decided to pull some real data out today. So thank you to Maya from our office actually for putting these details together. So this gives you a real idea of, and this is, this was pulled together, within the last 24 hours. So the data is live as you can get, really. But this is what we've seen in terms of, I suppose, rental prices throughout the main, I suppose, the core areas that we service. So Melbourne, South Bank, and Docklands. So if we look at those numbers, so I'm going to use my other screen over here to look at them. So if we look at the numbers, Melbourne, you're seeing between, so Melbourne CBD and also St Kilda Road, you're seeing between 10 and almost 20% reductions in rentals. You're seeing a much larger reduction in the price of 2-bedroom properties in the Melbourne CBD in particular. There's no surprises there at all. They're the ones that are typically favoured by overseas students. And overseas students are the ones that were really occupying the Melbourne CBD. So you've seen close to a 20% reduction there in prices on 2-bedroom apartments, which is really significant. So it's $100 a week. So we're not seeing small movements. That is because, like I said, you've had that student market move out. There was some really significant rentals that were being achieved 6-12 months ago. I remember, talking to a few people about saying that I was quite shocked with some of the rents we were getting for 2-bedroom apartments. And that's purely just based on the fact that the demand was through the roof. We could not list the property, or so we couldn't list enough properties online to keep up with the amount of demand we're getting. We were getting, 30, 40 people arriving at open for inspections for 2-bedroom apartments in the CBD. It was just a bit crazy. Whereas that's just pared back altogether. The other significant reduction, 3 bedrooms, but they seem to fluctuate quite a bit in the Melbourne CBD. But even say a 10% reduction on the 1 bedrooms, again, probably a little bit less overseas student in that one there. A lot more around the Airbnb. So the 1-bedroom apartments were used pretty significantly for Airbnbs. So you've seen, they were sitting around that $420 a week for a 1-bedder, up to kind of $450 if it had a car park. They've come down to mid to high threes pretty consistently, and that's what they're achieving. South Bank's a very similar story. So 1-bedroom apartment in South Bank comfortably get $420 a week without an issue previously. We're getting applications at the moment, probably even less than $380, so that the rents might have dropped to that level. But I know we received an application yesterday on a 1-bedroom with a car park in South Bank for $360 a week. So they are coming off, as are the 2 and 3 bedrooms. So the 2 and 3 bedrooms in South Bank, different story to what's going on in the Melbourne CBD. South Bank had a significant amount of short stay properties. There's a couple of short stay operators out there owned by some of the big developers that had. It's difficult to say how many they had because realestate.com doesn't even do it justice because some of the bigger developers out there are only advertising 1 3-bedroom in a building when they might have about 40 of them available.
Here's an example of that. Just to add to that, I was at a property today on City Road that we've got for sale, and met a buyer that lives in the building. So I had a look at it, and they go, "What's going on with the whole short-term rental market?" I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "There's like 50, 60 washing machines, dryers, beds, chairs, tables just sitting in the car park downstairs." He's like, "Are they just all just abandoned and have gone?" So, that just gives you an example. If he's exaggerating, and let's say there's 40 washing machines downstairs, that's 40 apartments that at one point were on the short-term rental market that have just come back in one building. And that's sort of huge numbers. In a building that's probably got, I think that particular apartment building's got about 220 units in it. So, quite a considerable amount of properties coming back into the rental market in sort of one hit in one building. So you times that by, a few, all of a sudden it's sort of, the numbers sort of start flying out quite quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what's been happening there. So the 2 and 3 bedroom apartments in South Bank, slightly different to the CBD. So the CBD short-term rentals, a lot of 1 bedrooms and a percentage of 2 bedrooms were being used for short stay. But in South Bank, it was a lot of 2 and 3 bedrooms because you'd have people coming in for a weekend and they might have like I don't know, an event, a crown, or a party or something like that. So they'd be hiring those, or they'd be renting those larger properties, the larger 2 and 3 bedrooms. But yeah, as we said, that's disappeared. Partly because you've got you haven't had any local tourism, so there's been no one coming from interstate to come and stay in the CBD. Even locals who are going in and staying in the city, say for a weekend, haven't really had a reason to do that because obviously all pubs and clubs and restaurants and things are being shut anyway, and they're slowly starting to open, but not at any great pace. So what? To be honest, they're the ones, and you can see by the percentage there, they're the ones that have suffered the most significant losses. So 2 bedrooms and especially 3 bedrooms. So it wouldn't be a stretch for a 3-bedroom apartment in South Bank to achieve $800 a week. And I know I was having a conversation with someone earlier today, and there's 3 or 4 of the same floor plan type of their property in the same building, and it seems to be a bit of a race to the bottom. So the rents were at $675 last week; they're down to $650. They'll be adjusting down to probably $620, $625 over the next week. And with that many of them available in the same building, where does it stop? It only really stops when those properties are leased. So that's where it becomes a bit difficult. We've also had a few conversations with landlords over the last couple of weeks around different strategies to try and lease properties. And we've implemented a couple. So we had one strategy where we'd offer a significantly reduced rent for 3 months, and then coming back up, but just trying to average it out over the 12-month period so that it actually achieved a reasonable rental for the property. That has generated a little bit of interest because, and there's been a few other agencies that have been trying the same thing. But still, what we found as the most effective strategy is just pricing it at the right point to make sure that it's competitive against similar floor plans in the building. If you're pricing it so that you are the lowest in the building, you will certainly get the applications first. I suppose it's just normal economics, really. Someone's going to certainly apply for a property that's priced the best over one that's obviously priced more expensively, unless there's something differentiating about the property. So it's on a higher floor, or it's a larger layout, or whatever it might be. So we do need to keep those things in mind. Similar story for Docklands there. Unfortunately, there's no positives, but if you look at Docklands, again, slightly different demographic of people living in Docklands, but the ones that have been impacted by the most by it have been the 1 bedrooms. The 2s and 3 bedrooms seem to be holding their value reasonably well. Especially the 3 bedrooms, but you got to remember the 3-bedroom apartments in Docklands are usually a lot larger, higher end.
Probably a lot more. Predominantly more so owner occupied too. So you won't have a lot of 3-bedroom apartments come up for lease in Docklands. Majority of the ones that are, especially sort of Lorimer Street and that part of Docklands, a lot of them are owner occupied. So almost sort of high numbers of sort of 70-80% of properties in that sort of area, and a lot of them are 3 bedrooms are owner occupied, or people that have got that's their city base, and they may have a regional property or a coastal property, and then sort of have that apartment sort of there. So we had we saw a lot of people downsizing and move into Docklands. So that's probably why you don't see the numbers come off so much in the 3 bedrooms there, because it's probably whenever they do come up, they're bought from owner occupiers, not investors.
No, agreed. So what we've one positive thing that we have certainly seen is sorry, I'm just flipping the screens over. One positive thing that we've certainly seen is applications starting to flow through pretty well too. So there seems to be a little bit more, I suppose, numbers of people inquiring, numbers of people coming through properties. So again, if the properties are priced correctly, we've certainly seen a bit of an uptick over the last 2 weeks in terms of applications coming through. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but I know we'd set a target of leasing 50 for the month of June, and we're well on track to do that. So I think with some of the properties that we'd leased towards the end of May and start of June, we're already tracking well above 20. So we're so there's a significant amount more movement now than what there has been over the last 2 months. even some of those properties that have been sitting there for 2 or 3 months, even some that are available pre kind of COVID coming in, we've started seeing inquiries on those and people coming through inspections and people being a little bit more, I suppose, confident to be out there looking and I suppose reassessing their options in terms of whether now's the right time to move into a new property. Yeah. Anthony, I'll look over to you. So is there anything on the sales side that you wanted to touch on briefly as well?
Look, there's a couple of things. We've seen a lot more inquiry coming through in the last 2 weeks. So sort of once we're able to open for inspection sort of came back, inquiry numbers have definitely increased. So this has resulted into more people that are out and about attending open for inspections. We probably saw an average of 3 people at our opens on the weekend, that's probably going back to pre-COVID numbers. So that's a positive. And also the last 2 weeks as well, we've seen a lot more sort of people that are engaged to put their properties on the market. So rather than sort of sitting back and wanting to sort of, we'll see how it goes and those sorts of things, a lot more people made a decision to go, let's go to market, let's put the property up there, let's see what we're going to do. And we're starting to see a lot more first home buyers come back in. We're starting to see those, a lot of those buyer groups that we would have seen pre-COVID sort of start coming back in. Admittedly, there's people out there that are sort of, offering prices that on some properties are, a little bit unrealistic, but that's okay. You're going to get those. You get those in good markets as well. So you just got to entertain the conversation and work with it and just identify whether or not they're actually a buyer in the current market. But no, look, there's some signs there. Now, whether that lasts long term, we'll obviously wait and see. But there are starting to see some more properties come to market. So we'll just got to monitor that over the next couple of weeks and see how we go.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
Did have one question come. Sorry, you're gone.
Yeah, no, just a quick one. There's one of the government benefits that was released last week, I think it was around renovations and building new homes. Have you seen anything come in from that? So have you seen anyone coming through and maybe buying a slightly larger apartment that's a bit run down, willing to spend that $150,000 on to claim the $25,000 government benefit, or have you seen anything like that at all?
No, I haven't seen anyone with that at the moment. But I guess I'm sure we'll see some people sort of doing that and taking advantage of that scheme. I think it was great. My own opinion, it's probably a little bit too high in terms of $150,000. If you spend that sort of money on an apartment, it's going to be pretty spectacular. But that's my opinion. But I think it was a good initiative, especially I think that'll help the people out in the suburbs that are in that two minds of whether they upgrade, extend, or and renovate. I think that you'll probably see won't affect us as much. I think out in the suburbs it probably will stop people from selling. I think it'll have a situation where they'll take advantage of renovating their existing homes. And then just sort of staying there for another couple of years, rather than sort of say let's sell as normal people would do, and then upgrade. So we may see that affect the market out in the suburbs a little bit more than us.
Yep. Okay, that's great. And Anthony, there was a question there as well.
It did come through. So it was just with regards to the working environments changing, lifestyle changes, and how we're sort of with disruptions, and also Australia entering into a recession now, travel restrictions, and not returning to normal. What are our views on the potential rental market? So I guess with what you're seeing at the moment, is this sort of a long-term thing that people should expect to see rental prices coming down, as you sort of showed in the previous slide, or is it short-term until we see students come back, hopefully at the end of this year, start of next?
So in my view, what I expect is that we're probably going to have a bit of a protracted outlook for the next probably 3 to 4 months. People will get used to the prices that they're paying at the moment, and it will be an expectation as people see these prices, they'll leave their current tenancies, they'll go into these properties, and you'll kind of get that churn that you expect. Unfortunately, the churn will probably mean lower rents. I wouldn't expect to see 15-20% reductions consistently. I think you might see as people start to move out, you might see a bit of an uptick again. So you might overall see about a 10% reduction overall. But for there to be an increase back to I suppose the way things were back in February, March, I think you're going to need some sort of circuit breaker to the market, and that circuit breaker is going to have to be either allowing international tourism, allowing a significant amount of local tourism, to then draw a bit of stock out of the market from an Airbnb sense, and then I think you certainly need the students to return, particularly in the CBD. You definitely need students to return to see anything like the rents we were achieving in Feb, March. And like I said, we were having those conversations with people in February and March where, you'd list a 2-bedroom apartment in the city for $550 a week. You'd have 30 people attend and open for inspection, and they'd almost be bidding for the property, and you'd end up leasing the property for $600, $620 a week because there was so many people that were interested in it. Whereas now that same property is leasing for $450. So it's, again, I think I've mentioned probably 100 times, but it's normal supply and demand. When your demand has been removed from the market and supply remains the same, you're not going to have the prices that were being achieved. In saying that, from all accounts, it sounds like the students, and I know the university will be pushing pretty hard for it to happen, but students should be back first semester 2021. So if that happens, then you'd see, I suppose, the remainder of 2020 looking pretty soft. Maybe, like I said, a slight uptick on where things are at the moment, and kind of see an overall, say, 10% reduction. But then, start of next year, hopefully see things kind of pick up. So the advice that I've been giving to landlords at the moment is, if you can secure a tenant, even if it is for a slightly lower rental, accept it. Take the rent for 12 months, get the cash flow coming in, rather than I suppose holding firm on a particular price that you want to try and achieve. Get that cash flow in for 12 months, and then in 12 months' time, we're going to be the middle of next year by then anyway, and hopefully that's given things an opportunity to kind of improve. You've got the international students come back in, and that's that circuit breaker that we need to try and lift rental prices back up.
Yeah.
Okay. We've also just had another question come through as well, Anthony. I'll just publish that one. So this one here, about a specific case. So again, with these specific cases, it's come through as anonymous. So I just encourage you to just contact your property manager or send me an email at the end, and happy to kind of address it with you personally. So it says here about the tenants that are facing financial hardship. Some landlords have offered rent reductions, deferrals. I've granted my tenant 30% reduction for 2 months, and now the tenant is asking for additional months of reduction. There is no other option that can work for both parties. So it's a bit of a difficult one. So without knowing the specifics of the case and the location of the property and everything like that, you need to look at it this way, that having a tenant at the moment is, I suppose, is a value. So you certainly want to hold on to tenants that are paying rent. You've seen, like we've just gone through, obviously the rent reductions that are happening in certain areas just in the normal market. So we're seeing anywhere between 10 and 25% reductions just on properties going to market. So if your tenant was to vacate, you could potentially find the property vacant for a period of a month or two, on top of having to accept a 10 to 20% reduction in rental on the original asking price that you were achieving previously. So on that sense, you do need to definitely consider that when you're offering rent reductions to tenants. However, we need to understand what the situation is with the tenant and whether there's a view to improve. Because like you've said, you've given 2 months to the tenant at 30%. Is there any view of improvement from there? Are the tenant circumstances likely to change over the next couple of months, or is it just going to be an ongoing situation where every 2 months they ask for another 30% for an additional 2 months? We need to understand now what's going to happen. I suppose, what's the next hurdle that needs to be reached for that tenant in order for rents to start to go back up. And again, it's difficult to know without actually understanding the situation. But if the person's lost their job, for example, what are the job prospects? What's the likelihood of them finding a job paying similar to what they were earning before? If they've had their hours reduced because their employer can't allow them to do it, and they're just earning JobKeeper at the moment, then potentially their business is looking at reopening, or potentially turnover started to pick up that business, so they might then start getting a few more hours, and it might be JobKeeper plus some additional income. So we need to understand what's going on with the tenant, and what we've been doing and what the property managers have been doing is actually re-engaging with the tenants that are due for these, I suppose, reviews, to find out what their situation is. We need to understand that. We had a situation, so to give you an example, we had a situation recently where a landlord had offered a deferral to a residential tenant, which isn't commonplace. We're not really seeing too many deferrals. Most of them are just straight reductions. But we've had a deferral offered to a residential tenant, which what that's had the effect of doing for the tenant is it's been great. The tenant's had a 25% rent reduction for 2 months. They're paying 25% less than what they were paying previously for 2 months. However, after that 2 months is up, they're back to paying their usual rental plus making up for the 2 deferrals that they'd received. So they're actually in a position where they're paying more rent now than what they were paying pre-COVID because they'd asked for the deferral. And without understanding the whole situation, I look at that saying, well, if they weren't in a position a month ago to pay their normal rent, how are they possibly going to be in a position in 2 months' time to pay their normal rent plus the deferral that had been offered to them? So we need to understand that, I suppose, the individual situations of each of the tenants and actually get where the end game is and where they're going to. So, like I said, with your particular case, I'm not 100% aware of the situation. So what I do is please reach out to either your property manager or me. Happy to work through the details and actually understand what's going on with the tenant. And similar sort of situation, if the tenant's no longer in financial hardship, then that 30% reduction is no longer valid. The rules around hardship are very clear, and anyone not being able to, I suppose, provide evidence that they're going through hardship, that rent reduction doesn't apply to them anymore. So that's why, like I've said, it's really, really important that we actually understand the financial situation of each of these tenants so that we can do that. And we are going through it at the moment. Last check we had, and it's a bit of a staggering figure actually, but we checked it this week. There was 112 tenants who were on either payment reduction or payment deferral setup, and that's just in the residential tenancies on our portfolio. So I know the property managers have a significant amount of work cut out for them over the next couple of weeks, just catching up on those. They all ranged in time periods. Some of them were month by month, others were 3 months, others were 6, some were 2. So we'll be checking in with them prior to the expiry of those, just to find out where the tenant's at. But I believe in most cases the tenants have already kind of said to us, well, JobKeeper started coming through, things are starting to improve. I'm starting to get a few more hours at work, and I don't need the reduction going forward. So like I said, let's deal with that one there individually, and anything else just obviously come straight to me or the property manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I think we'll do you want to chuck our details up there as well, Michael? I think it's a good opportunity to share our contact details with everyone. So if you've got any other questions like that, feel free to send them through, and happy to sort of address it. And if you send me an email, you most likely get a phone call back. But if you want to just give us a call or send us an email, our details are there. So anything else want to cover off on tonight, Michael? Or
I might just quickly being June, it's always worthwhile just touching on end of financial year. My favourite topic. So just want to be mindful. Just want to be mindful that we are in June, and it's a good opportunity to kind of think about what things are available to you as a landlord. Obviously now's not the best time for anybody to be forking out money, but if you can, and your property is in need of minor renovation works, then it's probably not a bad time to look at doing that. particularly repairs. So if there's, a wall that needs painting or carpet that need replacing while the property's vacant, if the property's vacant, then now's certainly the time to do it. Also, maybe even look at bringing forward some of your expenses. So if you've received your next Owners Corporation levy or water or council rates or anything like that, then obviously you want to try and capture it in the current financial year so that you're able to then claim a deduction for it. So just start thinking about those things there. If you're looking at trying to write a little bit more off this financial year, I would reach out to your property manager or just to our accounts team. So accounts@ire.com.au. They'd more than happily let you know what's currently sitting there for payment and see if we can potentially bring that forward. I know leading into the end of June, we do a lot more creditor payment runs to make sure that we pay as many creditors as possible before the end of the financial year, so there's not things sitting there carried over into the new financial year. So yeah, we'll be doing those. We usually do them twice a week to creditors, but we'll be doing those virtually every day in the last couple of weeks of June, just to make sure that we're paying all of the creditors, so that we're able to you're able to get those tax deductions for them as well. Yeah, that's really it. Like from a property perspective, that's it. If you wanted anything more, again, happy to kind of address things individually with you. Obviously we're happy to kind of provide that sort of advice around, the tax benefits of that you can get through the property. Things like depreciation schedules and things like that. Happy to talk to people offline about that. I think it's definitely worthwhile having, but it's probably worthwhile, I suppose, a separate discussion rather than addressing it here. Yeah. All right. That's about it from me.
Yeah, it's the same as me. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. But yeah, Mike, you last little send off before we head off.
Look, I think that's about it. Just again, like Anthony said at the very beginning, thank you everybody for for joining in on these sessions. We've had some really good attendance at the live sessions, but also probably even better attendance watching the better numbers watching the recordings as well. So like I said, we'll continue doing these. We've found that obviously they're quite useful to get messages out to all of our clients and for you to actually see us face to face once every couple of weeks. So we'll keep doing these. Like I said, they'll probably change a little bit in format over the next little bit as we kind of get a little bit better with them and we start bringing a bit more new technology and everything as well, which we're a little bit excited about. And yeah, as Anthony said, if there's anything at all, our mobile numbers and emails are there on the screen. So please give us a call. Don't ever feel like you can't pick up the phone and give us a call about anything at all. And yeah, if there's anything that people want addressed, at one of these live forums, or they think that might be useful for us to address with everybody, more than happy to take suggestions on what we need. Thankfully, Anthony and I had this conversation earlier in the week. Thankfully, we're actually starting to run out of material a little bit, which is kind of a nice thing, because unfortunately all we've been talking about over the last few weeks is coronavirus. But all of that's starting to settle down. Even like I said, the rental market has kind of settled down a little bit, and we're starting to see normal numbers of people coming through opens and properties being leased, and things are kind of ticking over again the way they were. So if there's anything that, any other topics that you can think of that, you'd like addressed at one of these forums, by all means, just send us an email. I'd be more than happy to address it. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you everybody again for joining, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.